Alrighty, so I'm not gonna lie, this video might be more for me than it is for you, but ever since I was a little kid and I started buying pedals and getting into different sounds, I've just loved them. And for the first time in my career, I have started playing with a singer who actually wants me to use all my pedals, which is amazing. As a guitarist, that's one of the best things you can ever hear, right? Like, yeah, I love that sound, keep experimenting, keep finding new stuff. And I feel very fortunate for that. Now, this artist that I'm playing with, her name is Jenn Blosil. She's incredible. She was on American Idol, and she's been doing a lot of really cool stuff recently. And if I had to describe her sound, it's like a weird mix between like Jack White and Billie Eilish. So obviously there's a lot of room to explore our sonic landscape. What a buzzword, right? But really, honestly, there's a lot of cool stuff, and like I said, I've always loved messing with pedals, and so this gig has been really fun to keep playing, to keep trying new stuff. So all I wanted to do is just go through some of the tones that I've been using for Jenn Blosil's set, and we'll go ahead and dive right into it. Now, I have it broken up into 3 main categories. There's our drive section, so all of these guys down here into our boost. Then there's our modulation section, and that goes through all of this, basically the HX stomp and the generation loss, which kind of is also a drive. Anyway, that one's kind of a weird one. And then we have our time-based effects, which would be our spring break and our flashback. And for this gig, I used every single one of these pedals. So let's go ahead and dive into the board. For our always on options, I have 2 buffers that are underneath the board. There's one at the beginning of the signal chain and one at the end of the signal chain. I have this EQ on, and this EQ really isn't doing anything more than just giving us a little dip at 4K. The reason why I chose to do that is because I love the Duchess, the Victory Duchess, which if you want to watch a video on that, you can click here. It's over my shoulder there, right? I love it. I love everything about it. I think it's got really cool tones in there. It's super versatile. But for my personal sound, it's got this weird bite to it. It's actually not a weird bite. It's a very British bite to it. And I just want to tame that a little bit. I don't want to get rid of it, but I want to tame it. And that's literally all that does. Then, of course, we have the EP booster always on and just a slight notch above 0. Just kind of collects everything, compresses it a little bit, and it gives it like the secret sauce or this glue to kind of hold everything together. Now, in addition to that, the way that I've structured this video is I have live footage from the show where you can hear it in context of the song, and then it switches to me playing the pedal here in isolation, so you can kind of hear both how it is in context and how it is here. And I try to move through them pretty quickly, but obviously this is going to be a longer video just because there's a lot of pedals to get through. So here is our first song. Our first song is called Ugly Kid, and for this song, I started on the Rat, and then I move into the Glitch Witch. I really only featured the Glitch Witch here because we all know what a Rat sounds like. The Glitch Witch I've fallen in love with. So for the clip that we're looking at, I have just the fuzz on. It's a super gnarly rad fuzz. It's become something that I love having on my board because it's so gnarly. And then I add this modulation on here, which you can hear in the clip.
Friends were found inside
If you like the Glitch Witch and you want to see more of what it can do, you can go ahead and click here. Moving right along. Next song is a song called Jesus Freak, and it is the Brothers AM full bore with some tremolo attached to it. You can hear it here. If you want to see why I think the Brothers AM is important, you can click here. This is where we get into one of the sounds that honestly I was super jazzed about because I had to really think through and plan this out. So I also had to set my guitar down because I have to flip over the board to show you exactly what I did. So Jenn's music, like I said, is kind of a weird mix of Jack White and Billie Eilish. And so that's where we have the fuzz, we have the distortion, we have the wacky guitar sounds. But if we have that Billie Eilish edge, what we're saying is that there's this kind of hip hop influence in there. And with that comes 808. For those of you that don't know what 808s are, go listen to Kanye West. Or in other words, they're like tuned synthesized bass drums. That's kind of like the most basic way that I can describe it. And so when we were trying to figure out how to replicate that, instead of just throwing it all to tracks, what we decided to do is we realized if we mixed the drummer's actual kick with my tuned synth, we could create, or sort of create, an 808 sound. And so that's what we did with this seismic synth over here, as you can see. So the seismic synth, if you'll notice, is turned off right now. Here it is on, lights up there and there. That's it on. But when it's off, we can tap here and it switches to volume pedal, and you notice that the volume pedal is on. This is because I have two pedals attached to the same button. And when the seismic synth is off, the volume pedal is on and it's turned down. The reason why is because in order to get these 808s to sound really big and beefy like we needed them to, going through a guitar amp was not really the best option. And since I run a mono signal through my whole board right now, what I did is I fed my main signal through my left channel and it goes through the whole board, but then my right channel coming out of just the HX Stomp goes to its own separate junction box over here, and then I have it plugged in, as you can see up here, to a DI box. And literally what happens is when I turn this on, the volume pedal turns off, it is no longer turned down, and it's a separate pathway that allows that 808 sound to come out of both the left and the right channel of the HX Stomp. The right channel is fed through this junction box that I built, and therefore we're able to pipe it through the house and make it so that the house mix can have that really thumpy, big, subby 808 sound. Here's what the underside looks like. So on the underside, you can see the two buffers, you can see the chocks that's powering everything, and this is our little junction box that I built. You can pull it off. You can actually see I asked Jenn to draw on it, so she drew a bunch of fun stuff on it. Rainbows, butterflies, that's very Jenn. And because I built this junction box for her show, we called it the Junction Box, as in Jenction, pun, junction. Anyway, property of Mac Wright. That's obviously worn off by now because it gets rubbed against carpets all the time. But that's the little junction box. It comes out of the side and allows us to send it to the house so we can get some cool subby tones. Here's what it sounds like.
When I know there is a difference between love and lust. Honest respect and a mutual trust. I'm not looking for a body just to get me through the night. No, no, no. There is a difference between love and you got me feeling dirty, babe. It's like you have the nerve.
Up next, we got to look at some more modulation effects. And if we're looking at what we're using for that, it's going to be our HX Stomp XL. We do have a little bit from the generation loss, but again, that's kind of a weird one. It's like simultaneously, anyway, we'll just get to that later. But the HX Stomp XL, I have a 70s chorus, I have a phaser, I have a rotary, and I have a tremolo, and a synth, and then I have this seismic synth, which you just saw. And honestly, aside from the 70s chorus, which is based on the old Boss chorus, all the other sounds I based off of the old FM4 and MM4 by Line 6 that were big in the 90s, and I have two of those. I've made a video on them, which you can watch here. And I just love the sounds that you can get from them. Anytime I've looked for modulation sounds, I've always gone back to those. And so when I found out that the HX Stomp has both of those built into it, I automatically went and bought one like the next day. So I could have those effects on my board in a smaller, more compact option, and that I could swap through easier, and where the buttons didn't break and it wasn't made of plastic. Anyway, for everything that the FM4 and the MM4 are good at, there's also a lot of faults with them, and I recognize that. That's why mine only get studio use. But this song is called Bad Fruit, and it has mainly just the rotary on it.
To what I can tell, crying on the couch in California, knowing that you never.
The next song is called Tired, and honestly, all I did for this one is I throw on this 70s chorus, and then I took my tone knob and turned it all the way down to get this kind of weird vocal synthy sound, and that's what you'll hear here. Good Man has probably one of my favorite sounds overall. It starts with just this phaser over some nice open chords, and then when we hit the chorus, we throw on the rotary. It's just a really rad sound, and you can hear that here. This last one's called Chagrin d'Amour, and that's where I get to use the generation loss. And honestly, I was so excited to get to use the generation loss because as much as I love the pedal, I bought it, I think it's really cool, and I've used it in YouTube videos. I haven't really found a practical application for it in the gigs that I play, so this was my first time I got to make this kind of old tape, you know, messy sounding jazz thing going on, so you can hear that here.
But somehow you entered through hers, and that night in the kitchen.
All right, now we get into our time-based effects. And honestly, I kind of have them all set up using the exact same thing because I really like this lush bed of reverb and delay. So what I have is the Not a Dumble on the clean channel, which just adds this little sparkle, shimmer coolness to it. Then I throw it through the Spring Break reverb, which if you don't know what that is, it's a reverb that has a delay feeding into the reverb. It's really rad. You can watch a video here. And then we have the flashback to just give it a little bit of echo as well. So here it is on a song called Spilled Milk.
You told me you were too busy. Then you promised I could perfect. So all your
And here it is on a song called Delulu, where I do it with swells. Now, when I play it live, I use my actual volume pedal to make the swells. But with the pedal board sitting up on a table, it was a little more difficult to do that in the studio, so I just use my volume knob. Not as smooth, but you get the idea. If you want to watch an early video of mine on volume swells, you can click here. If you've made it all the way to the end, bravo. I can't believe it. Honestly, this was probably, like I said, this was probably more for me than it was for you. But this was just fun. I just love pedals. I love messing around with different sounds. And so I just wanted to show off the sounds that I've gotten. If you watched all of this, it means that you'll probably like most of the things that I talk about, because this is probably one of the most Mac-right videos I've ever made. So if you like what you're seeing here, like and subscribe. You never know, it could be really cool. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the channel. If you are returning, if you're new here, join the channel, be a part of the channel. In other words, subscribe, like the video, all that jazz that we all say way too often. We're gonna go ahead and close you out now with the solo tone over the outro of the song Good Man, which you heard a little bit of before. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you around.